David Penny.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Speaker. This is a very unfortunate bill. The Greens, like our Labor colleagues, have opposed it from the beginning and will continue to do so. Fundamentally, this bill threatens, and I use that word advisedly, to change the relationship between New Zealanders and our police force in an adverse way. We're going to see a situation where it's the thin edge of a wedge of commercialising the services that police provide for us. We're told that specifically this vetting charge is in response to what's perceived to be a private benefit. I don't accept that argument for a moment. If our wonderful police officers around Northland continue to do their job well and get on the streets and sort of keep the rascals on their toes, then it's less likely my house will be burgled, and that's a direct private benefit to me. There's a much greater public good in having a peaceful and a safe community. The private benefit that accrues to me and to all of us individually, we already pay for that. It's called tax. And I know some of our friends on the national ranks might think tax is actually a four-letter word, but I think paying for public sector services through tax is a pretty robust model, and I'm very happy to see that continue. And I think that's something to isolate a single a state agency like police, single amount for some, a little bit of private sector market-driven sort of an approach is a very unfortunate and a backward approach. The introduction to the bill talks about the need to, quote, alleviate strain on police resources. And there's no question that the police resources are extremely stretched and under pressure. Effectively, they've been on a flat budget. Their income's been flat for some 7-8 years. The calculation given to us was that between 2010 and sort of last year, the police had had something like a $90 million cut in real terms. Last budget, they got a small extra amount to pay a long overdue, a quite modest pay increase, which was welcome, but again, I stress, probably overdue in terms of maintaining morale within the police. At best, you could see this bill as a short-term stopgap measure to try and drive a little bit more money into the coffers to try and enable the police to do their job. The fact is that the police have found efficiencies through technology, through changing the way they manage their human and other resources, but the fact is there's a limit to how much and how far you can squeeze or stretch $1. This bill, as I say, could be seen as a stopgap measure, just a short-term grab for a little bit more income, but I think more cynically that longer term it is setting up a situation where charging for police services will become more commonplace. We started out with this business of vetting, and I do follow Mr Whafoi's commentary about the cost. I distinctly remember at Select Committee the figure of $7 was the figure we were working to. We are now told by the Minister quite recently at the second reading that actually it'll be $8.50. That's a 20% increase before the bills even escaped from the House. And following Mr Whafoi's comments, if it was talked about as $5, that's actually a 70% increase since it was first proposed. How much further do we go? Internationally, a figure of $50 is not uncommon. And okay, at the moment, even if it's $8.50 or doubles to $15, $16, that won't hurt any of us in this House if we choose to undertake a vetting process for whatever reason. But we've got to remember the people who are going to actually apply to be vetted are often in that community voluntary sector. It's all very well to give an agency a waiver, but one would also consider the level of bureaucracy and cost in administering those waivers. But do we really want to punish people, members of the community, who put their hand up to give back to their community by assisting at a local early childhood facility or by working in a hospice as a volunteer? Anywhere people are working with vulnerable members of the public, that's where they'll be hit. You get a person on a low income or a fixed income, if they choose to work in one or two different agencies, perhaps at an early childhood and at a school, whatever it might be, they will need to get a vet for each of those functions. They'll have to go through the process each time they want to offer service. So we're actually putting a financial penalty on people who want to contribute their time to community well-being. And I think that's a very perverse message to give members of the public. thank you for your contribution, now here's the bill. And isn't that a roundabout way? It's a money go-round, effectively, taking money out of the pockets of members of the public who are wanting to do the right thing, wanting to contribute their time, and handing that to the police. Reminding ourselves that actually the numbers involved are relatively small in the scheme of things. If you look at the overall police budget, the few millions of dollars that this might raise is actually very small beer. Weigh that against the, as I've said, the precedent it sets that we're going to have a commercial relationship with our police force rather than one built on trust, built on shared commitment to a safe community. It's a very unfortunate and a very slippery slope we're heading down, I believe. So the minority, well, yes, I'd make the point in our minority report on the bill following the Select Committee, we did anticipate that the cost would go up over time. I think we didn't anticipate it would go up quite so quickly and quite so much, as I say, at least 20% before the bills even escaped the House. At the moment, the target of this bill is the vetting of people who want to work with vulnerable people. But I guess the message is to other organisations, other community sectors, is be afraid. Sports, for example. Yes, police do routinely turn up at sporting events, be they large or small. Is the sporting sector the next to be in the crosshairs to have extra cost imposed on them? Again, an area with a lot of public benefit as well as private benefit. Mr Farfoy does make a fair point that yes, if there's a huge, a significant sporting event at the Cape Tin or anywhere else, that does impose cost on police force, and there is an argument that says, well, yeah, maybe they should be able to clip the promoter's ticket. But then how far do you go with that? If you have a major sporting event, your expectation is you'll also get more traffic on the road on a given afternoon or evening. Do you send the cost or the cost recovery out to extra road policing that would be required? Do you add the cost of the likelihood that there'll be a few more people partying up in Courtenay Place in the unlikely event that the Hurricanes have a win at the Cape Tin, for example? Where do you draw those boundaries? Is it not better simply to bring the boundaries right back to where they belong, to say we will resource the police properly through vote police, that is where their income comes from, and they will disperse it operationally in the way that they see fit? So we don't see any positive future in the idea of a commercial relationship. The other area I'd point to that does undoubtedly impose significant financial cost on police is in search and rescue. We live in a beautiful country. It's also a country that takes no prisoners. If people are a little bit careless in the outdoors, in the mountains, out on boats, then the likelihood is that they can come to grief, occasionally through carelessness, as often simply through unexpected or unpredictable events, weather events, whatever it might be. Do we really want to see a situation where New Zealanders, or indeed our tourists, our visitors, are discouraged from engaging with our beautiful outdoor environments for fear that if they get lost or require some assistance, they're going to be looking down the barrel of a significant bill from their local friendly boys and girls in blue? I think that would be a very unfortunate outcome, but it's a very predictable one because search and rescue does not come cheaply. It takes a great deal of cost and police time to administer, involve their own officers, to organise volunteers and civil defence and the like. And I think that would be a likely target if we go down this road of charging for police service. So, Sarah, I won't labour the point, simply to say that we think this bill's ill-conceived, it's the wrong model, and we will continue to oppose. Thank you.